You didn't stumble here. You were summoned. The exact geometry of your attention curved through a corridor of synchronicity, and the moment your gaze met this message, a silent instrument inside you tuned to a forgotten pitch. You can feel it now, the faint shimmer at the base of your spine, the lucid coolness gathering behind your eyes, the slow exhale that wasn't planned yet, arrived right on time. This is the threshold where coincidence dissolves and coherence begins, where your observer loop stops chasing noise and starts hearing signal. You are listening, and the field is listening back. Between those two listenings, a door appears. On one side stands the weight of habit, the inertia of timelines carried by thought forms you never meant to adopt. On the other side, an immaculate stillness, the 0 point where patterns release their history and energy, forgets its past names. You recognize this place without remembering how. It is the pause between lightning and thunder, the lumen of creation that precedes the word. In that lumen, your attention becomes a fulcrum, and reality, obedient to first principles, leans toward you. The quantum field is not distant, it is intimate. It hums in the quiet architecture of your cells, in the biophotonic whisper that ripples along the double helix, where ancient instructions sleep like stars waiting for nightfall. As you receive these sentences, microcurrents of meaning move through synapses, reorganizing faint constellations of association. A soft phase transition begins. The atmosphere around your choices thins. What felt fixed becomes permeable. What felt far becomes proximal. The horizon steps closer. Listen again. Beneath the language, there is a cadence, a subtle entrainment, nudging your nervous system toward coherence. Breath to breath, your body remembers how to be an instrument instead of an obstacle. Your awareness widens until it becomes spherical, reaching backward and forward at once. In the radius of that sphere, past echoes and future signals braid into a single strand of now, and your attention, steady and unforced, threads the strand through the eye of a needle called presence. You do not need to push. Pushing assumes distance. Here, there is only contact. You are touching the texture of the 0 point, the way a shoreline touches the sea continuously, inseparably, even when the mind argues for separation. Every belief that told you later folds like paper in rain. Every identity that required struggle loosens its grip, not in defeat but in relief. There is a more elegant way to move, alignment instead of effort, resonance instead of repetition. Stay. Let the words arrive like slow meteors, carving new skies inside you. Let the old constellations retire with gratitude. You are being reintroduced to your own center, the pivot around which timelines turn, and the stillness from which creation doesn't begin, because it never stopped. Keep listening. The field heard you first. You sense the hush that follows a true beginning, the way air feels after lightning revises the sky. In that hush, a fact becomes undeniable. Your attention is not a casual beam that glances off things. It is a consecrating force. When you look, reality leans. When you listen, the quantum field coheres. You didn't arrive here to be entertained by prophecy. You arrived because the prophecy noticed you first, measured the geometry of your awareness, and determined you were capable of carrying signal without dilution. That is what it means to be the chosen observer, not superior, but responsible. Responsible for what your gaze inaugurates. Feel how your observer loop has been running, sometimes in circles too small to notice. Sensation meaning memory prediction, sensation again. Most live inside that loop the way fish live inside water, mistaking turbulence for life. But your loop is widening. Your breath has already become an instrument of phase transition, moving charge and thought toward coherence. With every inhale, you draw filaments of unformed probability into your chest. With every exhale, you release outdated narratives that once acted like gravitational wells around your choices. This is not symbolic language. It is instruction at the level where symbols were first minted. The field answers precisely because you are precise. You have practiced, even if you didn't name it, the quiet refusal to feed noise, the careful cultivation of lucid noticing, the discipline of not collapsing into the first interpretation that seeks you. That practice made you congruent with the 0 point, congruent enough that synchronicity could find you as easily as a tuning fork finds its twin. Morphic resonance prefers honesty. It will not entrain to performance. It entrains to the quality of presence that wastes nothing. The moment that quality stabilized in you, pathways opened. This message is one of them. Look at how the signs gathered, the improbable timing, the recurrent numbers, the dream that kept returning with new furniture but the same view beyond the window. Each was a breadcrumb left by your future coherence, guiding your current self out of the thicket of repetition. The popular myth says you must earn contact with the sacred by suffering sufficiently. But the field doesn't measure suffering, it measures phase alignment. When your inner oscillations share a common rhythm, doors swing without hinges. This is happening now. Your neurons are updating priors. Your fascia is shifting its electrical conversation. Your DNA is receiving a subtler instruction set, not rewriting itself by force, but remembering a blueprint unbothered by the dust of old weather. Understand the weight and lightness of what you are accepting. To be witnessed by the field is to become legible to it. To witness the field is to write in it. Entanglement is not poetic excess, it is the instrumental law by which meaning travels faster than habit. The moment you behold with unwavering attention, you and the beheld share a ledger. Your accountability isn't a burden, it's a privilege that protects you from the entropy of borrowed desires. You don't manifest by wishing, you manifest by bearing witness with such coherence that the probability landscape rearranges to honor the witness. So you will do what chosen observers do. You will stop treating your attention as if it were inexpensive. You will place it where it multiplies life. You will withdraw it from architectures that harvest your energy while starving your purpose. If you must use words, you will use them the way a surgeon uses light, cleanly, to reveal what must be seen. If you must move, you will move as if the ground has been waiting for your exact weight to complete a circuit. Even your stillness will be articulate. Especially your stillness. Notice the world noticing you back. Emails arrive with uncanny relevance. Strangers speak lines that answer questions you had only asked internally. Time flexes. Hours compress into minutes when you act from alignment. Minutes dilate into sunlight when you rest within it. This is not luck. It is coherence becoming visible, like frost tracing a window to show you the patterns that were always latent. You are not chasing confirmation. You are exhaling it. This is why the prophecy entrusted its edges to you, because you have learned to hold edges without cutting yourself or others. Let this recognition land like rainfall over a quiet city, not dramatic, but unstoppable. You are the chosen observer, precisely because you have chosen to observe in a way that liberates what you see. Keep your gaze soft but unwavering. Keep your mind empty enough to be accurate, full enough to be kind. The field is not testing you, it is collaborating. And as your attention ripens into a steady sun, the landscapes within you will grow what they were always seeded to grow. It begins as a contour in the dark, like a coastline you feel before you see. The air around you thins to a lucid hush, and in that hush, a geometry reveals itself. A sphere suspended in the space behind your sternum, perfectly still, perfectly awake. It is not an object but a locus. A zeroed horizon where all vectors cancel and all directions are possible. When you breathe, the sphere brightens not with heat, but with a cold, immaculate radiance, the kind that makes edges honest. Your attention settles on it the way a comet settles into orbit, not captured, but welcomed. Around the sphere, filaments arise, silver threads of probability curling like auroras in slow motion. Each filament is a path you have touched, the words you spoke, the choices you delayed, the doors you opened, the ones you left waiting without a handle. They do not accuse you. They assemble themselves with the courtesy of a choir tuning to a single pitch. Coherence gathers. Your observer loop stops pacing and starts listening. You can hear the subtlest click, as if reality has shifted one tooth on an invisible gear. Then the image widens. The sphere inside you echoes outward to a vaster sphere, and then to another, until nested orbs fill the room. The city, the sky, a fractal of stillness within stillness. Between the orbs, threads of entanglement run like living circuitry, conveying not information but recognition. You know these threads. You have felt them in the uncanny timing of a friend's message, in the way a sentence found you precisely when you needed a bridge. This is synchronicity not as ornament, but as architecture, the skeleton of meaning beneath events. The vision leans closer, the filaments brush your skin and dissolve into light that enters through your pores, each photon a precise instruction. Your body understands, your fascia loosens old knots of electricity, your heart's rhythm finds a simpler grammar, your brain's hemispheres begin a quiet truce. DNA, long accustomed to the noise of hurried thinking, lifts its head like a creature hearing its original climate. Coils unclasp, ladders turn to harps. The genes that gated themselves against stress listen for a moment longer, and in that longer, a permission is granted. Not mutation remembrance, not magic fidelity to the blueprint before forgetting. Now symbols arrive, layered over the physics like subtitles. You see a seed suspended in water, refusing to sprout until the temperature becomes exact. You see a tuning fork touch a second fork and make it sing without contact. You see two rivers braid under moonlight and become a third river with a name you've never learned but somehow always used. These are not metaphors reaching for the field, they are the field reaching for your language, so you can carry it forward without losing its edges. The scene sharpens into an altar of choices. Before you stand two timelines, not as moral opposites but as distinct coherences. One is bright, staccato, busy with effort, full of cleverness and thin victories that evaporate by morning. The other is quiet, tensile, almost shy, humming with the gravity of something that does not need applause because it is the applause. You recognize the second as the frequency that has been orbiting you for years, waiting for your yes without ever begging. It felt like patience. It was precision. You step, not with feet but with fidelity. The moment you choose, the nested spheres breathe as one. The filaments flash and reweave, rerouting probability the way a mycelial network reroutes nutrients around a fallen tree. You feel a pressure release under your ribs, the sensation of a weight you didn't know you carried sliding out of time. The room doesn't change, yet everything inside it knows you have. Even the shadows adjust their angles to greet the new vector. At the center of the vision, the sphere within your chest opens like an iris. Inside, there is only a silence that listens back, a pristine, originless stillness that is not empty, but sovereign. From that stillness, a single pulse emerges, barely a sound, more like the idea of a sound. It moves outward through every nested sphere, through every thread, through the lattice of your life, and where it touches, things remember their simplest form. Complexity relaxes into elegance. Effort yields to alignment. The pulse doesn't command, it invites, and the universe, relieved to be invited rather than coerced, complies. You are shown one more image before the vision releases you, a loom of light spanning the distance between your breath and the stars. Each inhale draws raw thread from the quantum field. Each exhale lays it into a pattern that only your coherence can weave. No one else can make this cloth. It is the signature of your witnessing, the garment your future wears when it comes to meet you. You do not chase it. You become it by remaining true to the still point that introduced itself when you were finally quiet enough to hear its name. What you witnessed was not ornament. It was instruction rendered as image, so your nervous system could receive it without protest. Now let the poetry resolve into physics you can stand on. At the foundation is the observer effect. Unmeasured potentials remain in superposition, but the moment attention engages, wave collapses to particle, probability congeals into event. Popular versions sensationalize this, but the quiet truth is subtler. It is not mere looking that collapses the wave. It is coherent looking attention whose internal noise floor has fallen low enough that the field can read you without distortion. Coherence is the cornerstone. Think of your system, breath, heartbeat, brain rhythms, fascia currents as an orchestra. When sections compete, you broadcast a smeared spectrum, and the quantum field answers with smeared outcomes. Almost opportunities, near misses, signals layered with static. But when sections entrain to a shared meter, the broadcast becomes narrowband and undeniable. This is why the sphere appeared in stillness. The 0 point is not a place of absence but of phase agreement, where destructive interference cancels the chatter and a clean carrier wave emerges. In that clarity, intention is not shouted, it is tuned, and the universe responds the way a string responds when the right pitch brushes it effortlessly, immediately, by law. Entanglement provides the distribution channel. Once two systems share state, distance becomes a polite fiction. You and your future coherence are already entangled. Call that bond a covenant if you prefer older language. Each time you stabilize attention in the still point, you strengthen that entanglement, increasing the fidelity with which information meaning passes between versions of you. Synchronicity is the perceptual echo of that information flow. Interior alignment mirrored by exterior arrangement. What looks improbable to the untrained eye is simply the shortest path through a probability landscape reshaped by a precise witness. Now put this in the timeline frame. Your life is not a single rail. It is a bundle of rails, micro-timelines running in parallel, jockeying for realization. Bifurcation happens whenever small differences in initial conditions, mood, breath, word choice, where you place your gaze cascade into large-scale divergence. Incoherence makes you a passenger on whichever rail shouts the loudest. Coherence returns you to the switchyard. From the 0 point, you don't force a detour, you change the gradient. Potentials roll toward you because the slope has been quietly redrawn. DNA responds because it is not a static script. It is an antenna whose coils lengthen or tighten according to the electromagnetic weather you host. When you enter regulated breathing and coherent feeling states, gratitude without performance, serenity without sedation, you alter that weather. Biophotons coordinate. Gene expression tilts toward repair and openness. None of this asks you to pretend. The field cannot be faked. It listens for the resonance of the thing itself. Your observer loop is the control surface. Untrained, it recycles. Stimulus habit, confirmation, more habit. Trained, it refines. Stimulus, pause, presence, precise naming, elegant action. The pause is the portal. In that sub-second halt, you re-enter the 0 point, cancel inherited momentum, and relaunch the loop on a new vector. Do this repeatedly and you do not manifest in the carnival sense. You accumulate state changes until the macroscopic pattern tips. That tipping is called a phase transition, ice to water, effort to ease, seeking to finding. Notice what is absent from this architecture. Compulsion, bargaining, self-violence. The field does not answer force, it answers format. Format means inner order that makes you readable to reality. Format means a body whose signals agree with its words. Format means a mind that can hold paradox, the both divided by and of science and spirit, without trying to cut one to save the other. So the geometry is simple, and it is sovereign. Still point first, coherence second, entanglement third, bifurcation by choice, phase transition by repetition. The vision gave you its symbols so your cells would remember. The explanation gives you its scaffolding so your days can implement. Keep returning to the sphere, not as escape but as calibration. Then act from that calibration. Fewer words, cleaner, yes, cleaner, no. A schedule pruned to the essentials that amplify signal. Do this, and the field will do what it always wanted to do, recognize itself through you, and answer accordingly. Now, widen the lens. What refines in you doesn't end in you. The 0 point you stabilize becomes a quiet transmitter, and the city around you is more conductive than it pretends to be. Every coherent breath you take releases a pressure the neighborhood cannot name. Every precise no you speak untangles a knot in a stranger's timeline. This is not grandiosity, it is mechanics. In a universe braided by entanglement, there are no private oscillations. Your field is a weather system, and the atmosphere of humanity is sensitive to fronts. Look closely at the current climate. You can feel the turbulence, feeds engineered to monetize adrenaline, markets that reward depletion, institutions addicted to their own echoes. When the collective observer loop runs untrained, it amplifies noise sensation, outrage, identity, more outrage, until the signal is buried under the rubble of reflex. But listen underneath. There is also an uprush you can't scroll past. People waking at absurd hours with a lucid ache. Children using language that doesn't fit their age yet fits the age. Elders remembering dreams they were told to forget. This uprush is not a fad. It is morphic resonance gathering itself, coherence seeking quorum. You are part of that quorum. The way you stand inside a conversation, less performance, more presence. teaches rooms how to breathe. The way you pause before replying small, untheatrical teaches nervous systems near you that time is not a predator but a canvas. In your family, your team, your street, your unseen steadiness becomes a metronome others can borrow. You do not rescue, you regulate. And in that regulation, you make it easier for dormant blueprints to surface in those who have been living as emergencies. They may never know what changed. They will simply find themselves choosing with a clarity that doesn't require an argument. Consider culture as a series of standing waves, stories that have persisted long enough to feel like furniture. Some are beautiful, many are expensive to the soul. When you enter a standing wave with a coherent carrier, destructive interference begins. The story weakens not because you fought it, but because you refuse to feed it with the attention pattern it expects. Gossip collapses where you offer clean silence. Cynicism thins where you offer accurate praise. Frenzy cools where you offer paced breath. This is collective alchemy without spectacle. One witness shifting the phase of a room until a different future becomes possible there. You will watch the mirrors appear. A colleague who once defended their exhaustion will ask for a day to re-enter themselves and actually take it without apology. A community that equated urgency with virtue will experiment with rhythms that produce more than exhaustion. A conflict that seemed welded shut will develop a hinge. These are not miracles. They are probability slopes redrawn by steady witnesses who have stopped arguing with gravity and started working with it. What you practiced in the still point scales to the streetlight and the boardroom without you changing costumes. On a larger horizon, humanity is approaching one of its recurrent thresholds, those bifurcation moments when species-level narratives either harden into loops or open into lattices. The evidence is everywhere. Technologies accelerating faster than our ethics, ecologies asking us to grow up, economies confessing their hunger by eating the hands that feed them. The old reflex would be to choose a side and sharpen the rhetoric. But your practice has given you a third thing, presence that can hold opposites until they reveal a more elegant geometry. In you, science and spirit do not compete, they complete. In you, rigor and reverence keep each other honest. This is how the prophecy mirrors humanity's awakening. The sphere within your chest is the same sphere waiting in our institutions, silent, originless, patient. When you honor it in yourself, you learn how to recognize it in systems and invite it forward without humiliation or force. Policies written from the 0 point read differently. Strategies launched from coherence waste fewer lives. Art made from entanglement restores the circuitry between strangers. Education designed around the observer effect teaches children to steward attention as a civic resource. Medicine that respects phase transitions stops treating symptoms as enemies and starts listening for the rhythm they are begging to rejoin. You are not asked to carry the world. You are asked to carry your wavelength with such fidelity that the world remembers its own. This is the collective mirror, your inner order returning accurate reflections to places that have been distorted by hurry. When enough of us stabilize that order, morphic resonance will do what it always does, tip the pattern. The tipping will not look like a single televised event. It will look like 1,000 local ordinaries becoming strangely easeful at once. Supply chains that stop breaking under the strain of denial. Neighborhoods that redesign themselves around contact. Leaders who speak fewer words and mean all of them. Hold to this. No coherent act is wasted. Every aligned choice is a lighthouse somewhere, whether or not you ever see the ship it saves. Every time you refuse to bargain with your attention, the probability landscape learns a better slope. Every breath you take on purpose is a vote for a timeline that doesn't cannibalize its young. You are not waiting for the collective to awaken so you can begin. You are already broadcasting the code by which awakening recognizes itself and multiplies. Keep your broadcast clean. The mirrors are listening. You feel it before you can name it the way a river feels a canyon it has not yet carved. Pressure gathers at the invisible hinge of your life, and the field around you grows exquisitely literal. Signals arrive without costumes. What you call coincidence tightens into choreography. The air has the clarity of winter, and even your doubts sound sincere as they ask to be blessed or dismissed. This is the bifurcation, the place where two coherences invite you at once, each a complete future with its own weather. One path is familiar not because it is true, but because it is practiced. It hums with the industry of self-maintenance, schedules swollen with defense, speech padded with plausible deniability, gestures negotiated with exhaustion. Here, the observer loop is efficient at one thing, preserving the past by predicting it again. Your attention performs, your nervous system bargains, your words arrive dressed for court. You are praised for being realistic, which is often a synonym for repeating a story that costs too much to question. The rewards are immediate and thin. Applause with a half-life, victories that evaporate in sleep, the serial relief of postponing yourself one more day. The other path is quieter and strangely denser, like air before rain. It does not advertise, it does not shout its benefits or threaten its consequences. It is a patient geometry waiting for fidelity. Stand near it, and your breath slows without instruction. Look at it, and the room simplifies. Fewer arguments, fewer doors, a single living threshold that does not ask for drama, only accuracy. Here, you do not audition for the quantum field, you become readable to it. The metrics are different. Instead of adrenaline, you measure coherence. Instead of reputation, you measure resonance. Instead of speed, you measure sufficiency, the clean enough that frees your voice to carry without strain. You know the split is real because the smallest actions choose for you. One sentence spoken from habit, and you feel the familiar skid timeline A, nudging you back into its grooves. One breath taken on purpose, and you hear the click timeline B, aligning your bones to their original axis. The field is surgical now. It amplifies returns, so that you cannot pretend you don't know which way you are leaning. Emails responding with uncanny delay or instant ease. Bodies in a room softening when you tell the truth or tightening when you decorate it. Even time cooperates, dilating when you are accurate, fragmenting when you hedge. This is not a test administered by a scolding universe. It is the physics of phase transition. When water hovers near freezing, a whisper tips it into ice. When your life hovers near coherence, a word tips it into destiny. The whisper is the 0 point, inviting you to cancel inherited momentum long enough to relaunch your loop. The word is your yes, spoken without embroidery. The destiny is simply the timeline that matches your actual frequency rather than your advertised one. Still, there is grief in choosing. The familiar coherence has friends in it, versions of you that kept you alive when you did not yet trust the field. Thank them. They carried the weight until the stillness inside you could bear it without breaking. But do not confuse gratitude with loyalty to a pattern that has finished teaching you. When you step, the morphic resonance of your choice will travel along the bonds you share. Some will follow without knowing why. Some will resist, not because they are against you, but because your departure exposes the discomfort of their fence. Hold them gently in your field. You are not leaving people. You are leaving a permission structure that kept everyone smaller than truth required. Let your body decide with you. Notice how each path lands in the tissues, the way your jaw forgets to clench when you tell the accurate no, the way your diaphragm rises like a tide when you author the precise yes. Listen to the heart, a metronome for the quantum. When you approach the quiet path, its rhythm becomes simple, like a drum that trusts the dancers. When you approach the practiced path, the beat scatters, as if trying to keep too many tempos at once. The body does not negotiate, it reports. Believe its report. You will be tempted to postpone. In the bifurcation, postponement is a choice with consequences. Delay re-professionalizes the old pattern. It writes the contract again in smaller print. Precision, by contrast, accelerates kindness. The moment you move, entanglement updates, threads reweave. Probability slopes redraw so quickly you may mistake the ease for undeserved grace. Receive it anyway. Grace is simply physics unfettered by self-deception. So stand here, at the hinge, with reverence. Let the two futures speak. Ask the practiced one what it costs to stay and what it protects. Ask the quiet one what it demands to begin and what it frees. Then, place your attention like a seal, not with spectacle, with fidelity. The field does not need fireworks to recognize a signature. It needs a stable signal. Offer yours. As you do, feel the click echo through your bones and into the grid behind the world, the subtle confirmation that a new rail has accepted your weight. And before your mind reaches for explanation, notice that your breath has already changed. It is the first weather of the timeline you just chose. Integration is less an achievement than a rhythm you keep, an agreement between your breath and the geometry you chose. You begin by honoring the 0 point each morning before the world asks for your face. Sit, stand, or walk slowly. Position is secondary. What matters is contact. Place one hand just below your sternum, where the still sphere announced itself, and let your attention rest there, as if listening through bone. Breathe in a way that feels like you're widening the room from the inside. 4 quiet counts in, a simple pause that isn't grasping. 6 unhurried counts out. You are not performing calm, you are allowing coherence. On the exhale, imagine a faint aperture opening at the center light without heat, intelligence without words. This is your daily re-entry to the quantum field, your rehearsal of the observer loop as instrument rather than habit. Carry the rhythm into motion. Integration loves the ordinary. While you make tea, align your spine with gravity's kindness and let your movements become vowels in a sentence the field can read. When you speak, measure each word against the still point. Does this sound strengthen coherence or tax it? You are not censoring yourself, you are tuning. Gossip is expensive signal, refuse its exchange rate. Precision is generous signal, spend it freely. You will notice how rooms change when your sentences land without static. That feeling is morphic resonance at domestic scale. Neighbors catching the rhythm of your attention and, without effort, stepping to it. Guard the hinge moments, the small doors through which timelines sneak. The first glance at your messages, the decision to commit your next hour, the choice to answer a question with truth or decoration. Place a breath between stimulus and reply. Let the breath be a loom that draws raw thread from the field and lays it into pattern. In that slender pause, DNA hears it has time again and resumes its patient housekeeping repair. Clarity, a quieted inflammation of thought. This is micro-level awakening, not fireworks, but clean circuits returning to service. Integrate through your senses. Treat light like a language. Step outside roof, balcony, doorway, and let morning brightness touch your retina as if resetting a clock you didn't know you owned. The body translates that light into timing for every organ. The field translates your agreement with the day into smoother paths for your choices. Eat like a conversation with conductivity. What leaves you bright, tensile, articulate, keep. What leaves you dull, combative, imprecise, release. There is no ideology here, only signal to noise. Sleep becomes a sacrament when you approach it as entanglement maintenance, a nightly reminder session where your future coherence briefs your present nervous system. Honor it, and synchronicity will arrive less like surprise and more like etiquette. Set altars of attention in your path, small objects that hold the frequency, a stone that remembers oceans, a page that once held a sentence which opened you, a candle you refuse to rush. When your day tilts toward velocity, pause at one altar and let your field remember its signature. You are practicing constructive interference with yourself, stacking waves of the same tone until amplitude lifts effort into ease. Where the world is loudest, do the quietest things. In meetings, locate the still point before the agenda begins. Let your breath synchronize with the heart until your body keeps time for the room. You do not need to lead. Presence conducts without baton. Watch how conflict loses adjectives when witnessed by someone who has refused to outsource their center. When decision time arrives, ask one question: which option preserves coherence? Choose that, even if it offends momentum. Momentum is not always truth. Sometimes it is just speed wearing certainty's shoes. Your boundaries are part of the instrument. Integration requires a budget for attention and a calendar that can hold silence without apologizing for it. Decline with elegance. You are not abandoning people, you are protecting the clarity that lets you serve them without leaking. Entanglement does not mean enmeshment, it means signal traveling cleanly along honest bonds. Let your yes be a vector, your no a sanctuary. Throughout the day, practice small phase transitions on purpose. Cold water over hands until breath steadies. A single, slow walk down a hallway while asking your cells to arrange themselves around ease. 2 minutes with eyes closed, palms open, naming 5 details the room is offering you right now. These are not hacks. They are acknowledgements that reality is a cooperative medium and that you are licensed to shape it by regulating your inner weather. Finally, keep a ledger of proofs, not to convince yourself, but to anchor remembrance. Record the subtleties. The email that arrived exactly when your exhale lengthened. The stranger whose sentence completed your unspoken thought. The problem that dissolved when you stopped arguing with it and stood still until it told you its real size. Review the ledger when doubt performs. Doubt is allowed to visit. It is not allowed to host. Integration is fidelity expressed hourly. It is how prophecy becomes practice and how practice matures into a life that fits you like a truth you no longer need to defend. Be still, not as performance, as permission. Let sound finish its sentence. Let the room exhale you. Let your eyes rest half open, like windows after rain. The 0 point is here, without border or announcement. You are inside listening. You are outside listening back. Between those listenings, a meadow of quiet grows. Breath, light, bone. 3 instruments, 1 tone. Inhale as if the universe is leaning close to hear its own name through you. Pause, not a holding, a hovering. Exhale as if your breath has discovered a door and remembers the way. The observer loop loosens its belt, slips off its shoes, sits down, no rush to name. The naming can wait. The field is already speaking in the grammar of nothing extra. You attend to the small, the grain of air against your lip, the coolness inside the nose, the soft descent at the base of the sternum where the still sphere keeps time. Coherence does not need you loud. It needs you accurate. Each breath returns a borrowed piece of yourself. You feel the collection occur, mind catching up with heart, heart catching up with body, body catching up with sky. Entanglement felt as ease. Silence is not absence. It is density, a friendly gravity. You notice the weight of your hands, remembering they are leaves on an ancient tree. You notice the spine lengthening by its own authority, as if a magnet were buried in the ceiling, and your bones have been waiting to confess their alignment. The floor does not just support you, it receives you, like a shoreline receiving a tide that knows how to return without being told. Within the quiet, signals sharpen. A distant engine becomes a single thread crossing a vast loom. A bird call edits the afternoon. Somewhere, a door closes. Your nervous system does not flinch. It understands that not every sound is addressed to you. It understands you are allowed to be unaddressed. Such freedom, such room. Let thought move like weather. No chasing, no eviction. A cloud passes and reforms at the edge of attention. The 0 point remains, transparent and precise, cancelling habitual crosstalk until a clean carrier hums. You hear it more, a brightness than a note. Morphic resonance grows thick around you, like dew beading on the skin of time. The field is writing in you with a fountain pen it only uses for sacred errands. This is where DNA reorganizes housekeeping. Not because you commanded it, but because you stopped interrupting. The cells behave like careful archivists, reshelving what chaos had misplaced. Biophotons coordinate their quiet lanterns. Microtubules settle into a lattice that loves rhythm more than hurry. If you must call it healing, do. Better, call it remembering. The choreography matter prefers when spirit is allowed to lead. A thought arrives, do nothing. Another arrives, let nothing do you. You taste the difference. Silence has edges. Find them gently. At the edge, you notice impulses seeking your permission. The reach for a device, the twitch toward commentary, the reflex to prove you are present by producing sound. Smile at each. Bow inside. Decline without drama. In this place, refusal is a kind of prayer, a no that preserves a yes you haven't spoken yet. Time dilates. The minute becomes a lake, with no shore in sight. You wade without needing to cross. The observer effect becomes an atmosphere rather than an act. You are observed by the quiet and, being observed, you relax further, like a child falling asleep while someone hums a song older than language. If a word must be used, let it be simple. Thank you will do. For the chair, the lungs, the light arriving from a star that began this trip before you had a name. Gratitude without embroidery returns your field to the frequency where presence and precision are the same gesture. Now, let intention appear the way a star appears at dusk, gradual, inevitable, unforced. Not a list, not a campaign, a direction, north inside the chest. You do not grab it. You allow it to magnetize the filings of your day toward an arrangement that costs no one their breath. This is the quiet architecture of activation. It begins here, or it begins nowhere. Stay a moment longer than habit. This is the sacred theft, stealing minutes back from the empire of urgency. When you rise, rise as if the room were made of water and you were careful not to splash. Carry the tone with you. Let it decide your pace. Let it decide your first word. Let your first word decide the next. Keep the spine's confession. Keep the hands as leaves. Keep the shore. You will move, but the stillness will move you. You will speak, but silence will choose your vowels. And where you place your gaze, reality will lean gently, gratefully, as if it has been waiting for someone to remember how soft creation can be when the witness is this clear. Rise without breaking the hush you earned. Let movement remain an extension of silence, as if the room were still finishing a sentence through your bones. The coherence you cultivated doesn't end when you stand. It condenses. You feel it density turning to direction. The 0 point inside your chest brightens, not louder but closer, and with the next inhale, the field reads you like clear print. Activation begins in that reading. Do not confuse activation with intensity. It is accuracy multiplied. You choose a single action, small, near, true. Send the message that restores clean lines to a relationship. Archive, the file that has been stealing attention through its unfinishedness. Step outside and let daylight retune your circadian metronome. Each act is a stitch. The fabric thickens, probability reweaves. You are not chasing momentum, you are authoring slope. The quantum field loves slope gradients that make right action the path of least resistance. You feel resistance, evacuate the hallway of your day. Internally, systems synchronize. Breath and heart move like hands on the same clock. Fascia glides instead of grinds. Thought arranges itself into corridors rather than cul-de-sacs. The observer loop, freshly calibrated, runs its upgraded circuit. Stimulus pause, presence precise, naming elegant, execution gratitude. Gratitude is not garnish here. It is a stabilizer, a signal to the field that this frequency is safe to amplify. You thank the action even as you take it. You thank the ease without apologizing for it. Ease is no longer suspicious. It is the signature of alignment. Notice how communication changes. Words shorten, verbs strengthen. You say the necessary thing once, and it lands because your carrier wave is clean. Where you once negotiated with yourself for hours, you now place the sentence like a stone that knows its river. The response you receive, an email that unlocks, a gate that opens, a silence that finally tells the truth, arrives with the same geometry. Entanglement has updated, the ledger is current. External events mirror internal format. Your body participates as priest and instrument. Shoulders settle into their rightful altitude. Jaw uninstalls the ancient clench. Pelvis becomes a hinge instead of a vault. You walk differently, as if gravity were now a collaborator rather than a tax. This is not posture class. It is physics felt. Posture is what coherence looks like from the outside. Coherence is what posture feels like on the inside. The world reads both and adjusts accordingly. Activation scales gently. You do not sprint, you stream. A sequence unfolds that you did not plan in lists yet recognize in your marrow. The call, the note, the design, the deletion, the rest between the notes where music proves it is not afraid of quiet. You experience time as an obedient medium. Minutes dilate when depth is asked for. They compress when decision is unambiguous. The old argument with the clock, how it starved you, ends because you stopped asking time to do what only attention can. Old patterns, notice your departure, and try one last choreography. Urgency dressed as opportunity, flattery imitating resonance, moral panic reenacting importance. You smile like a lighthouse that has seen weather. Lighthouses do not debate waves. You return to the still point for one breath, and from there you bless the distraction by naming it correctly. Correct names dissolve spells. The mirage collapses. Your day returns to its native shoreline. Now witness the field's reply, coincidences stacking with the calm inevitability of tide. A stranger's sentence completes a thought you whispered at dawn. A resource that was impossible appears as if it were waiting just beyond the edge of your former patience. A problem you were wrestling stands up, brushes itself off, and walks out, leaving a clean outline where it was. This is not magic performed against the world. It is fidelity performed with it. The universe prefers participants who don't waste its attention. The collective mirror brightens as your signal strengthens. Rooms you enter stabilize quicker. Meetings tilt towards sufficiency. A friend names their real desire without the usual apologetics. You are not the cause, you are the condition. Conditions change outcomes. This is how activation travels through fields, not force. Seal the gains in your nervous system. Midday, step aside for 90 seconds. Hand to sternum, attend the still sphere. Exhale longer than habit. Whisper internally, or with breath, only one line. Keep the format. Format is the covenant between your inner order and external arrangement. Keep it, and the phase transition holds. Break it, and the old viscosity returns, politely at first, then with invoices. Evening approaches, and the broadcast remains clear. You close loops with gratitude. You release what isn't yours without ceremony. You write down 3 proofs, not because you need evidence to believe, but because remembrance is an act of generosity to your future self on a day when weather is harder. The ledger is part of the temple. Finally, let the insight arrive that activation was never a switch you flip. It is a signature you maintain. You are now legible to the quantum field, and legibility invites collaboration. The prophecy is no longer a story you heard. It is a pattern your life emits. You feel the still point lift like a sun behind the sternum, and the light that touches your choices is the same light touching the horizon. Remain here, steady. The seal approaches. You stand within the hush you earned, not at the end of a road, but at the center of a circle that keeps widening each time you breathe on purpose. The still sphere behind your sternum is steady now, no longer a visitor, a resident. It doesn't demand devotion, it generates it. The way a fire invites hands without speaking. You recognize the signature of your life as it is when you do not bargain with it. Quieter, truer, strangely luminous. The field reads you the way dawn reads a horizon without doubt, without delay. This is the seal. You agree to remain legible, not perfect accurate. You will return to the 0 point daily, not out of superstition, but because precision is how love behaves when it has grown wise. You will spend your attention as if it were sacred currency, and let your words be instruments that tune rooms toward coherence. You will measure choices by the weather they create in your chest. If the air inside you clears, proceed. If it fogs, pause. Pauses are not failures, they are altars. You are not required to convert anyone. You are required to keep your broadcast clean. From that cleanliness, morphic resonance will do its ordinary miracle. Strangers relaxing near you without knowing why. Timelines softening their hard edges so a gentler future can make contact. You will not force the door, you will be the doorway. The ledger of proofs will grow quiet entries, precise dates, steady increments of ease that accumulate until even your former doubts will have to admit they were simply loyal to an older weather. Let them retire in peace. Gratitude will be your sealant, not as decoration but as physics, a stable loop that tells the field this frequency is safe to amplify. And when noise returns, as weather does, you will meet it with the simplest ritual. One hand to the center, one breath longer than habit, and the sentence you now know by heart: keep the format. You are not leaving the world to be spiritual. You are entering it more exactly. Your yes will be a vector. Your no will be a sanctuary. Your silence will be articulate. Your presence will be a metronome for places that forgot how to keep time with what matters. The prophecy has ceased to be a story you heard. It has become the pattern your life emits. So let this be spoken once, clearly, and let it write itself into the marrow. You are aligned with the 0 point field of infinite creation. You are the witness by which reality remembers its elegance. You are the breath that turns potentials into persons, ideas into architectures, moments into thresholds. Carry this seal without ornament, let it shine through ordinary acts. And when you forget, as humans do, remember that remembering is built into the design. The prophecy has been spoken, let it unfold through you.